Welcome back to the NerdNest podcast. I'm Bill, and today I'm joined by both Rich and Russ. How are you guys doing today? Rich, start off.
I'm doing great. So yeah, really excited for the games I've been playing, some games coming in. I've actually had some time to play video games, which is kind of a rarity. I've just been sort of like just focusing on myself for a little bit, and that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have to do that. I have to find a way to do that because I'm getting out of shape. And this, like, I had all summer with one job, YouTube, you know? But now the school year is starting. I have students coming in tomorrow. Yep. And so now I'm back to two jobs, and I got to somehow find a way to, you know, take care of myself just a little bit better because it's been bad. I've been eating a lot of junk lately, and I need to stop. Russ, you are getting on a plane.
Yeah, we're getting on a plane less than 24 hours. We're going to Germany and then Amsterdam, and really looking forward to it. It's always been this thing because I've known we were going on this trip for, I don't know, almost a year at this point, and now it's like becoming real. I'm like, holy crap! Like, I don't know any German. Like, these things that are coming into my head, I'm like, oh crap, this is going to be harder than I remember. So I remember the word Zwiebel, which is onions, so I can avoid that on menus. That's the big thing. So.
What's how do you say onions?
Zwiebel.
Zwiebel?
Yeah.
Is that weird B thing that goes at the front of some German words? Is that that sound?
No, it's just like a Zwiebel, so spelled as you'd think it would.
Okay, so I had some of these stickers that I had sent to some patrons, and some people were in Germany, and European addresses are freaking weird, man. So like I was like, I had to keep looking. I'm like, how do you? Like, where's this? Like, what's the zip code? What's like? And I had to put in like the weird letters that I don't know. I don't know what they are. Well, I just copied things over, and they ended up arriving in the right places. But
that's good to hear.
It is. All right. So hey, we are here to talk about video games, not Russ's travel, not Rich's taking care of himself, and not me complaining because I got two jobs. We're here to talk about video games, and we have a video game that is about to come out on September 6th, and I can't speak for everybody on the panel, but this game looks really cool, and it is Astrobot, and we just got the launch trailer. It comes out on September 6th, and I was just watching the launch trailer, and before we talk about the game itself, I took a screenshot and I put it in the show notes, guys. It says out on PS5, and then it has a weird symbol after that. Is that supposed to be like the trademark symbol?
That is what it looks like.
Yeah, I think just the font is just it didn't work out well.
Okay, I was just very confused by that. I was like, did they announce something that I didn't know about? Is that what they're going to talk about for old PS5 machines? Because we got more PS5 news later on the show, along with PC stuff as well. But this game looks really cool. I'm hyped for it. Rich, tell people why, like, what are you hyped for Astrobot?
I'm so hyped. And thank you for picking on me, because this is my chance to be smug. This is my, I was on Astrobot before everybody because it was the only good game on PSVR. I'm exaggerating. There was like Moss and Beat Saber and stuff like that. But Astrobot, like Rescue Mission, I think it was, the VR game on PSVR 1, so for PS4, was so good. And then, of course, it was the Astro's Playroom that was packed in with PS5. Thank goodness for packing games, and that was amazing. It was like not quite tech demo, but like people likened it to a tech demo just because of how short it was, and because of like it was there to showcase like the DualSense controller and features of the PS5, but also it was there to showcase like Sony, right? Like as a brand. And you see a lot of this in the trailer for the Astrobot that's coming out on September 6th. Is like they're bringing in like all sorts of things, Ape Escape, Horizon, right? Like they're bringing in all the IP for this, and it's very much a celebration of Sony, which I think is cool. Like I feel like Sony hasn't really had this yet. Like they've had like PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, but this is the first like big platformer celebration of Sony, and it feels like, it looks like a platformer. Like it looks like Super Mario Odyssey or Super Mario 64, and like, you know, I already enjoyed Playroom, and I think they're going to nail it with this one.
Yeah, that is, you mentioned Super Mario Odyssey, which to me is in my opinion, it is the best 3D Mario that Nintendo has made. I absolutely love that game. I had so much fun with it. And when I was watching the trailer for Astrobot, I was getting big time Super Mario Odyssey vibes. So I'm really excited for this game. I know it's only on PlayStation for now, but I'm sure that it's going to come to PC eventually. Russ, are you waiting for it to come to PC, or are you going to be picking it up this week in 4 days when it comes out?
Well, I won't be picking it up this week just because I won't be near my PS5, but I will pick it up as soon as I can, and it'll be on the PS5 because, one, I think it's like, even if it is going to be cross-platform or whatever, I am willing to pay for this game full price on the PS5, which says a lot about the game. That's very rare for me. And so the thing is, it's like Rich was saying, it is a platformer. Like, it is amazing in that sense. And I just rewatched the trailer while you guys were talking, and it like just filled me with little pieces of joy, which is kind of funny and rare sometimes in the video game world nowadays. But it reminds me the most of like the same kind of awe that I had when I played Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. It's just like so colorful, so vibrant, so many things you can do and whatnot. But the thing about Ratchet and Clank is it's contained within that Ratchet and Clank like world, like what they've already created, how the games play, what people expect those games to be. I mean, they have like the Portal stuff, which is really cool, but it's a Ratchet and Clank game. This can be any game because it doesn't really have the same rules associated with Astrobot. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And the fact that like there's all those little God of War things in there, like him crushing the little crystal or whatever to gain rage is like, I can't wait to see that. So yeah, I just think this is like a good, perfect, like couch kind of game, and that's the kind of thing I would play on a PS5 as opposed to the PC.
Yeah. So I should say, you mentioned the PC, Bill, and there was an interview, I forget with who, MinMax, I guess that's a show. Anyway, they asked him about, first of all, they asked one of the designers, I think, or creative directors, about if there's any interest in a VR version of Astrobot, and they said like no chance, like not at all. It's designed for a different medium, which makes sense. But then they asked about the possibility of a PC version, and basically they said, we want to hear from you. We absolutely, we want to hear from you on whether or not you want a PC version. So even just the fact that they are open to it, I think is a surprise to a lot of people. But I think it makes sense. I think seeing this on PC to get more of a Sony fan base is a good idea for them.
I don't see any... Like, when they answer questions like that, we want to hear from you, they already know what their answer is. Like, they're just... they already know what they're planning on doing. It's like sometimes when you watch somebody... Like, when you're watching a YouTube video, and they're like, by the way, if you want to see a video about this, make sure you let me know in the comments down below. Guess what? They already plan on making a video. They might not get around to it, but they already plan on making a video about that. They're just trying to get some kind of engagement from you, because if you say to Sony, or what's the name of the actual developers, Amiibo
Team
or
Asobi,
yeah, Amiibo, yeah, whatever. If you say to Team Asobi, hey, I want that on PC, then like you've almost made a mental commitment to yourself that, you know what, when this comes to PC, I'm probably going to pick it up. And if you never say that, then you might not pick it up later on. So them saying, we want to hear from you, tells me it's absolutely coming. And I think it's ridiculous to think that it wouldn't, because Sony has seen a lot of success on PC in recent years.
Yeah, I agree. When I saw that, I mean, like it's hard to draw like a concrete thing from that, but that definitely felt to me like, oh, they've already kind of decided that they want this on the PC, and they're just trying to raise the engagement for it. Like Russ, I'm buying it on PS5 day one. The kids want to play it too, so there's that. But if I double dip on this, I'm not going to be mad at all.
Yeah.
Will you double dip on it, Russ?
I was going to say that this is one of those where I don't even mind if there's no cross-save functionality and whatnot, because the joy of this kind of game is the play itself. It's not the story and collecting or whatever, for me at least. It's about experiencing each of the like level patterns and everything that they come up with and all the innovations. And so this is a replayable game for me. And so I don't mind not having a save game that goes between the two. And so I like the idea of being able to play this on a Steam Deck or an ROG Ally. That sounds awesome as well. The other, the big part of this too is just that this feels like such an easy entry point compared to a lot of the other games that we've seen released over the past year or so. So like something like Wukong, like I just haven't gotten into that game and decided that I'm going to buy it or anything because of the investment of like, one, it's a huge game, but two, you got to like get good. It's an Elden Ring kind of game too. You know what I mean? Like that's a big investment. Astrobot, I feel like I can just play on my own terms. Baldur's Gate 3 is like intimidating because there's so many things you can do with it. Am I going to do it right? Am I going to screw it up? How many hours am I going to sink into it? Astrobot is just a game you can pick up and play. And I really like that. That's always been what I'm about. So
what I think that I would really like to see is when this does eventually come to PC, I wouldn't say it needs to, but it would be very good for it would be a smart move on PlayStation's or on Sony's part if they also finally sold us the little wireless dongle so that you could hook your PS or your DualSense controller wirelessly and have all of the features of a DualSense without having to have a wire plugged into your computer. Because right now you can't. And if you're going to be playing Astrobot, like one of the things about Astrobot that it is very much, I wouldn't say necessary to play it with that kind of controller, but I wouldn't want to play it without the DualSense Edge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you think that they sell this without giving people the ability to wirelessly play it on a DualSense Edge controller? And would you play it without a DualSense Edge controller, Rich?
Well, DualSense and DualSense Edge. I don't have a
not
DualSense Edge.
but yeah, just DualSense is what I meant to say.
I personally would. I think the like very, I forget what they call their haptics, but like their like very specific haptics are so good that certainly I would recommend that someone at least try it on the DualSense first. But I just enjoy the gameplay regardless. So I would play it on anything, right? So if it's available for me to play on the Steam Deck, I'm definitely going to do that. And certainly when it's on the PS5, I'm going to be playing it on the Portal as well. So that'll be fun. Real quick, I want to say, Russ talking about like Black Myth Wukong and avoiding that reminded. I've already told you about this, guys, but I'm going to share it on the screen here. This, to me, this was Russ's reaction just now. So he sees Black Myth Wukong. He's like, "Kids, you've had your fun, but now it's the real men's turn. We're going to play Astrobot."
Exactly.
Yeah.
The thing about the controller too, I would add that like it almost feels like the DualSense is the proper way to play it. Like I don't want to gatekeep or any of that stuff, but it feels like that's the proper way to play the game. And whatever ways that Sony can make that accessible to everybody else, be it with a dongle or if they just have to plug in a USB or whatever, that's probably going to be the way to play this game, I think.
Do you think we'd see a big boost in sales of that particular controller along with this, or? I think there's a lot of people who are playing games mostly on PC. They're not going to be aware of how integrated the haptics are with the game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm not really sure. Like, it'll depend, when the launch is and whatnot, and how the game itself. Like, if this becomes like the years defining like fun game, then I think more people will pay attention to it, and more people will maybe be more aware of the fact that it's the why it's so fun is because the DualSense kind of engagement that happens with that.
Yeah.
Aside from like PC and stuff, just thinking about like its release on PS5, right? Like up until, I don't know, it feels like we're coming to a swell of excitement for this game right now. But like no one up until recently would have considered this like a hot seller or anything like that. Do we think that it'll sell well on PS5?
I think it's going to sell. It's going to get a lot of on the PS5 advertising. So like when you boot up your PS5, it's going to be like right there on the store. the competition for like games that are coming out that week, if I scroll down in the show notes all the way down, we have upcoming games, and like the other games that are coming out this same week, there's Astrobot, Warhammer comes out September 9th.
Yep.
And I'm not seeing any other games that are like big time games that are PlayStation games that are coming out at that week. I think that this one's going to sell really well, especially if Sony's doing some real marketing with it.
Yeah, it's all about the context, though, because, you can only sell so many PS5 games because of the number of owners there are compared to like a multi-platform launch and whatnot. Yeah, I hope it does well enough in the PS5 space that they're like, all right, well, now let's push it to PC and make sure that we do that port.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely come to PC, and when it does, like Sony's it's gonna have their little launcher with it, and probably won't work on the Steam Deck, so you're gonna have a Windows handheld or a Windows device to play the game on if that's what you're going to want to play on. I'm not going to double dip. I'll buy it on PlayStation. I'll just play it on PlayStation because this seems like the perfect game to sit on a couch and play, with a big screen.
Yep.
All right. Well, speaking of playing games, we've been playing games. Rich, we haven't spoken to you in 2 damn weeks. Or 3 weeks, I think. So like what games you've been playing, man? Pick one and start talking about it.
All right. I'm going to talk about all 3, but there's one I'll stick to a little bit longer. But first I want to talk about Doom Legacy of Rust. Legacy of Rust is a new campaign in the Doom 1 and 2 collection that released a couple of weeks ago. I've only made it to level 2, but that's part of why I want to talk about it, right? So like Legacy of Rust, this new campaign was made by I think it's only a few folks, but they collaborated across studios. So I think it's only like 3 or 4 folks, but like one is from Machine Games, one is from Night Dive, one is from id, something like that, right? And the thing about like new campaigns is that you have to appeal to people that have been playing Doom forever, right? So like they have to be difficult, but it's also difficult. It's also a challenging balance to strike where you want to be a difficult game, but you want to, you don't just want to be like a weird, like just throw a bunch of weird monsters at it. And so Legacy of Rust is made very well where it is challenging, but it's not weird, right? Like it's a sort of organic challenge, I would say. But I'm stuck on level 2. Like I'm trying to do, I'm not doing a pistol start, which is fairly common in like Doom 1 and Doom 2. But I am doing like, I don't want to save scum. Like if I will save if I just want to like, I'll save in the middle of a level if I want to like come back to it later or I'm just taking a break, but I will only load that mid-level save once. If I die, I have to go back to the beginning of the level. And the second level is like a good 30 minutes long for me. Like it's pretty long. And there's like there's revenants, there's these new monsters, and like you start out, you fight a revenant and you don't even have like a super shotgun yet. So yeah, exactly. So it is.
Remind me, those are the fire guys, right?
They stand super tall and they send out rocket launchers.
Oh yeah.
So it's not
okay.
They don't like raise fire at you. They do the rocket launchers. So yeah, it's a blast so far.
What are you playing it on?
Getting my ass beat. Steam Deck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, sorry, ROG Ally X using Bazite, which I now apparently just call a Steam Deck.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You mentioned Doom. I'm also playing Doom, and I have a question about Legacy of Rust, which I almost want to call the episode Legacy of Rust, just because of the nomenclature.
Nice. Yeah.
But so what I'm currently playing, I finished Doom 1. I've been playing the hell out of Doom 2, also on my Steam Deck. I'm really having a lot of fun with the game. But I'm running into an issue on whatever level I'm on. I think I'm on like 20 something. I can't remember. It's not that I keep dying. It's that I can't figure out where in the hell I'm supposed to go. And is that why you're stuck on Legacy of Rust level 2? Or is it because you are dying a bunch?
I'm dying a bunch. So like, yeah, Doom 2 is weird. And I'll come back to that real quick. But yeah, like Legacy of Rust is simply like they just found the right challenge, right? So like a Revenant with just a basic shotgun is doable, but like you have to like navigate around the rockets that are homing, right? So like you really have to like think about what you're doing. And then these pinkies are chasing you too. And then they have these new enemies that are kind of like lost souls, and those are chasing you as well. So you have to do a lot of like, like weaving in and out of like projectile paths. So it's just an actual, like I said, organic challenge, right? It doesn't feel dumb. It feels like they really thought about this. They had really good level design and encounter design, but it's meant to kick your ass. Doom 2, I don't think I'm as big of a fan of Doom 2 as so many people are. I like Doom 2, but I think that problem that you're describing is pretty common. And so like there are maps made by certain people that are like, oh yeah, the maps that are made by this guy, yeah, we don't like those. So
Right, because I was playing some level, and that was like my only solution. Because the issue with Doom is you can't look down, right?
Yeah.
You can't look up or down with the camera. So I'm like off on the side, and I see, oh well, here's the switch over here. It's in the middle of this big like radiation field that I can't walk into. So I have to go up high and then walk off the edge and land on it. But I can't look at it when I'm falling. And I was just so frustrated. I totally save scummed.
Yeah. I probably would for Doom 2. You could, I mean, like you don't have to, play the Kex version, right? Like you could just load it up in GZ Doom so you can, do up and vertical look if you want. But yeah, I've been enjoying the Kex engine version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll get back to the games that you've been playing, Rich. Russ, pick a game that you've been playing and talk about it.
So there's one that we all three have been playing. I think we should talk about that afterwards. Let me do one before that, and that's going to be I finished a short hike. I like finished a game, and I was like, oh my god! Like the achievement came up, and I was like, hey, you completed this game, and I was like, this I have not seen in a long time. But yeah, it's a very short game. I think you could probably sit down and finish it in 2 to 3 hours. But it took me 2 years because I just do little pieces of it. And it's funny because I loaded up my save game. I was really just testing. I took my ROG Nook, and I made a video about that. It's like a little mini PC. I put it in the living room, and I was like, let's treat this like a living room computer for a while, and then maybe I'll make a video about it or whatever. And so I tested it with that game just to kind of get a feel on the big screen. And I was just stuck at this one spot where you're trying to get to the top of this mountain or whatever, and you've only got so much energy. And then my son was sitting next to me. He's like, hey, Dad, try going left instead of right or whatever, like his little malleable mind compared to mine, which is all old and crusty, And sure enough, he was right. So we beat it. And he's like, oh, so that was it? And I'm like, yeah, sorry you saw the last 5 minutes of this game. But it's a fun little game, if you can find it for cheap. It's just literally about this kid who's going camping, and you're a bird, and you're going camping with your aunt, or you're visiting your aunt in a cabin or whatever, and you want to get your cell phone to be able to call your mom, basically, and you can't get any signal until you get to the top of the mountain. And so that's the goal, is just get to the top of the mountain. But you can do whatever you want along there. Like there'll be people asking you to collect things for them. You can earn money. You can pick up coins and stuff like that. So you kind of make it your own adventure. There's no stakes in the whole game at all, other than just to get to the mountain at some point. No enemies, no fighting. But it's not like a walking simulator game either. It's got some mechanics to it, And so, I really enjoyed it. And if you can find it on sale, usually you can find it for $5 or less or whatever. Totally worth it.
That reminds me, when I was in college, one of the last things that I had to do to get my teaching degree is we went into the Adirondack Mountains for a week with our professor, and we would spend all day like talking about pedagogy and education stuff or whatever. And then we would also like have to learn like survival skills, like the kind of stuff that you learn when you're in the Army. But we're there for a week, and this is back in the days of flip phones, and we didn't have a signal. So if I wanted to call my wife, I had to hike to the top of a big hill so I could make a phone call. And that was the only place, because we're like right in the middle of these mountains, that was the only place where you could go from this place, because we had to hike like 10 miles into the woods to get to his camp. But we hiked up to the top, called my wife, said, hey, honey, I'm okay. Everything's fine. I'm here. Okay, see you later. I'll try and call you tomorrow. And then you head back down the mountain, because it was like, it was a, I don't know, 45-minute up and then 45 minutes back just to make a phone call. So didn't go every day or anything. Is this the game where it's like, did you say you play as a bird, or Did you say a
Yeah, you
bird?
play as like a little bird, like a little pixelated bird. It's a very pixelated
okay.
looking game and stuff. And yeah, you just kind of you can fly around. You can collect. You eventually collect like these golden feathers, and every feather will give you another ability to flap up a little bit more. And so as you go, you like get more ability to flap higher, and that's what gets you to the further levels and stuff like that. And there's various ways you can collect those feathers. But yeah, it's just a real short game. I think it was made by like Humble Studios or something, like a Humble Original or whatever it is, because that shows up when you start up the game. But yeah, I picked it up years ago. I think it's part of like that equality bundle that they had. Remember that back in 2020? Like I think I got it then, and then I picked it up on Steam, and so I've got it in various different iterations. I think I have it on Switch as well. So yeah,
Very cool.
Yeah, it is available like for cheap all the time. Like right now, it's apparently $4.39 on GOG.com. So yeah, I'm sure it'll be another. I'm sure it has been an Epic free game. It'll probably be an Epic free game again. So yeah, there are probably a number of ways to get this, and bundles, of course. And I really enjoyed this game too when I played it.
Did you finish it?
Yeah.
Very cool. One of the games that I've been playing is this another indie game. It's called Pegland. Have either of you guys played Pegland?
Yep.
No? Okay, so I don't know if you were playing back when this was a big thing, Russ, but do you remember Peggle?
yeah. I'm looking at it right now. Oh my gosh.
This is you're playing Peggle, but it's an RPG. So you play as this little Yoda-looking guy, like a little goblin guy. And, that's the character you start with. You can unlock other characters as you play. But you start out as this little goblin guy, and he's up on the top of the screen, and he's on the left-hand side, and enemies are over on the right-hand side. And in order to attack those enemies, because it's turn-based, your turn, you have to play you have to drop a Peggle orb into the little Plinko machine so that it goes down to the bottom, and you do damage to the enemies that you're fighting against based on what kind of orb you used. And what, like how many things it hit on the way down. And you have all these different types of orbs that you can use, and you can level them up by spending gold. So as you're playing the game, you'll earn gold, and then you can, every time you get to a certain point, you can spend that gold to make your dagger orb better. The dagger orb doesn't do very much damage unless you hit a crit. And so like every time you get the dagger orb up, you're like, okay, I gotta stop for a second and look around and find a peg that has a little exclamation, a little yellow exclamation, and aim at that, because that's going to turn all of the other things into red, and I'll do more damage. And you have other things that do like ranged attacks, or you can pick your target using the bumpers on the top and bottom. This game is really fun, and it's because it's that turn-based, and every turn is very fast, and all you really are doing is pushing like one button and using the joystick. It's got that gameplay loop of, I have time for one more orb. So you send it, and then you're like, you almost killed the monster in front of you, and you think, I think I have time for one more orb. And you just say that over and over and over again until next thing you know, you've gone through 3 levels of this thing. It's really cool. And I think it's like $15. Rich, you said you played it before?
Yeah. So this was in early access, like a year ago. So I think it just released into 1.0 on August 27th, it looks like. And also I think they were in like the Nintendo Direct. I didn't watch the Nintendo Direct. I just know about some things that were on it. So I think they were on the Nintendo Direct, and that helped blow it up.
What, the one that just happened?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't play very long, about 1 to 2 hours, but I enjoyed this, right? Like just those same Peggle feels, like all of that like dopamine that you get.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that sort of turn-based combat, yeah, it's pretty fun.
It reminds me of Puzzle Quest. Do you guys remember that one? So that was like a match-free game, but it was also an RPG. And so this is kind of like that. It's this Peggle, but with RPG elements. And so I've already added it to my wish list. This is amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, I love that. I played a lot of Peggle. Like, I think on my DS is where I played it the most. And I tried to replay that through emulation. Holy smokes, the resolution is so low. Like, you can barely, like, the little Peggles aren't even really circles. They're just like squares because there's not enough pixels to like make it a circle. Like, that's how bad it is. But yeah, I really love those games.
That's funny.
Last episode, Russ and I were talking about World of Warcraft a little bit because I've been playing World of Warcraft. And one of the things, I don't know if it's still in the game, but back when Peggle was a big deal, you could play Peggle in World of Warcraft because you would have like downtime while you're waiting for your raid group to get together. And so you could like type a command and Peggle would show up in World of Warcraft and you could play it. So it's just, it's like Peggle was pervasive and then just vanished for no good reason because that game was awesome. But now we can play it and it's got those RPG elements added into it, which I love. I just hope it doesn't go the same way as Puzzle Quest, which the first one was absolutely amazing, and every subsequent Puzzle Quest that came out afterwards got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. Hopefully.
All right. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I can tell you about my time with Wukong.
Yes, I want to hear about this because I had a bunch of... I was under the impression that this game was a Souls-like game, and everybody yelled at me when I said that. Turns out it's not a Souls-like game.
Yeah.
Tell me why I was wrong about that, because I think it's something that's not obvious until you've played it.
Yeah, and I can see why, like, because it's not just you, right? Like, even people that have played it have, like, compared it to Souls-like games, so like Demon Souls, Dark Souls, but especially Sekiro, I think with that sort of like East Asian mythology, right? But what it is quite different, and it's not. I would not call it a Souls-like at all, because first of all, your like leveling currency, you never lose that, right? So you you can, as soon as you die, you basically have all of the same things you ever had, right? So you have your leveling currency, you have your whatever like. If you beat a boss and that boss came with a spirit, but you didn't make it back to like one of the save points, you still have that spirit, or you still have whatever you gained from that boss fight. So like dying has literally no consequence except just load time and respawning bad guys, right? Like that's literally it. So that makes it not a Souls-like. There's also like the skill tree is pretty basic as well, right? It's very like God of War, Ragnarok, or Spider-Man. Like it's that level of skill tree versus being in depth and like, I'm going to put points towards stamina. I'm going to put points or vigor, and I'm going to put points towards, I forget the things now in Elden Ring and whatnot. But it's literally just like a skill tree, like a God of War skill tree. So it's very basic. And then on top of that, the last thing is that, it is more of a like boss rush game. So some people will say it's just a boss rush game. And I think the just is the part that like deserves scrutiny, because like you do have fights with like just fodder. But all of that is like in service of the boss fights, I would say. So like all the fodder are very almost trivial, especially at the beginning. It starts to heat up in chapter 2. But otherwise the fodder is just that, right? Like they're just fodder. You're just trying to get to the boss.
Do the fodder that you're fighting do anything to train you as to mechanics that you'll see when you come up against the boss that they're in the level with? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but I don't think it happens.
Okay.
There is a degree to which, right? Like there are like these archers, and you have to like that's a good opportunity for you to learn and use your staff spin. But I haven't really used it outside of those archers, so I haven't used the staff spin in a boss fight. I will say that like bosses do that, right? Like the bosses train you for other bosses, or they help if you're not utilizing a certain tactic by the time you get to a certain boss, like generically, right? Like there are different bosses that make you learn different things. Like, oh, this is going to be a good opportunity to learn a different stance or something like that. So there, and like, there's 6 chapters. I finished chapter 1, and in chapter 1 there are like a total of 10 bosses. So it's like that in a like 4-hour span, right? Like I beat that chapter in like 4 to 5 hours. So you fight 10 bosses in your first 5 hours, like pretty much. So
that sounds great.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. I don't think, a lot of people are calling Game of the Year and stuff like that. I'm not sure if I'm there yet, but I'm still pretty early. I'm in chapter 2. But it's just very enjoyable. It is there are bosses that are challenging, and like I said, you may hit a wall at some point. I hit a wall with one called the Tiger Vanguard, with just like this tiger like drinking from a bath of blood, and then you have to fight him. So I was like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna be intense. So that one took me like 20 tries. I think it's like Punch Out, right? If you like Punch Out, you'll probably like this.
I love the fact that you don't get punished by dying, other than, like you said, the respawn and all that stuff. That's always like the thing that just kind of makes me abandon games sometimes, because it's like I'm not good enough to not lose this stuff, and like mentally I hate losing stuff, and so like I like this idea where it's like, just keep going, like you'll get it, you know what I mean? Like I like that kind of approach way more. So I just added to my wish list as you were talking, and I didn't have it before then, so nice. You may have gotten one sale when it goes on sale at some point.
So I'm looking at steamdb.info, and right now it's got 215,666 players playing right now. The 24-hour peak is 1.3 million players.
Jeez.
This game is absolutely huge. By the way, didn't Steam just hit another milestone, 38 million? 37 million concurrent? Absolutely crazy. Yep. I did see a couple articles that they were trying to bank on SEO, and they were like, I'm going to write about the fact that we have lots of people playing games on Steam. Well, Black Myth Wukong is also a thing that lots of people are searching for, so we're going to say that it's thanks to Black Myth Wukong, and then they're going to be able to put both search terms in their article at the same time.
Yeah. I do think so. Yeah, there's so much like weird misinformation stuff. There was also one that was like, oh, Black Myth Wukong loses 200, like 1 million players overnight or whatever it is, and it was just Chinese people going to sleep, right? Like that was literally all it was. It was just like it went down at the time that in China it's bedtime, and then it went back up. So that was weird. But I did ask the question. I'm like, I wonder how much. Like, obviously, Steam's been growing by itself, right? But I wonder how much Black Myth Wukong contributed. It didn't contribute nothing, right? So I wonder how much it contributed to that specific milestone. But also, I mean, like I said this in my video too, is that Valve has been advocating for like the China consumer base for a long time, telling game developers you should be localizing for the languages there. You should be pricing appropriately for the market, things like that. So this is just a clear indication, I think, that like, yeah, if you have the means to do that, like it doesn't hurt. It certainly helps in in instances like this.
True.
Yeah,
and
totally.
You know what? You said it doesn't have a zero effect. It definitely had some effect, but you know what else had an effect? Concord had an effect. At least 25 people probably started using Steam for Concord at some point. I'm being a jerk.
True.
Anyway. All right. So Russ, you were also playing DDI Rally Championship. That's one of the ones we talked about last week, right?
Yeah, so I was just going to follow up and say that we talked about last week. This is one of the other Sega Rally Championship games, and so I did buy this one and played it for, I don't know, maybe half hour, an hour. It's still in early access, so I'm hoping there's more like just kind of like physical environment things that make it like it very much feels like you're a block of polygons on top of another block of polygons. One's the car, one's the race. Like I can still kind of feel that, But it's good. It's got so simple. It's just like gas, brake, handbrake, and that's all I need, But it's even got like all of the commands and stuff from the old Sega game. So it's like, easy left, and oh no, when you hit something. Like it has all that stuff, just with a different voice actor, obviously. But yeah, it feels really good. And I was playing it in 4K on my TV using that ROG NUC. And yeah, it was pretty neat. I don't want to recommend it just yet unless you are like a diehard and just want to try it out and you want to try out all those types of games. But I would say that maybe, as the environment gets a little bit better, like, just little things like make it feel like I'm in mud, those kind of things that just aren't there yet. If it gets to that level, yeah, it's going to be a really fun racing game.
Sometimes when you're playing a game, you can see the game instead of being in the moment, and that's what it feels like you're describing.
Yeah, totally, exactly.
Okay. So let's talk about the game that we all played, and that's because we got review codes were sent to us from Retroware, and Retroware, and that game is Iron Meat, which the name of the game is metal as hell.
Okay.
The music in the game is amazing. Russ, you said something about it's like Contra meets Doom.
Yeah, it's like Contra meets Doom, and also it's Russian. As far as I can tell, I think the developer's Russian. The language in-game is Russian. Like, you look at the signs and stuff, and it's just, something I picked up on. It was like, oh, that says, exit denied or whatever. And so it's got that Eastern European metal feel to it, too. Yeah, it's it's Contra plus Doom. It's pretty great.
Yeah, so it is a side-scrolling Contra-style game, and you play like you're running through and just shooting dudes, and things fly overhead, and you shoot them, and little power-ups pop out. One thing that I think is cool is you can toggle between two different types of weapons. So you could do that with your bumpers on your controller. And so you can have one in storage and, switch. Oh, I'm going to switch over to the spread gun for this particular fight, or I'm going to switch over to the energy gun for this particular fight. Although I don't tend to have the guns for very long because you die a lot in this game, which at first I thought I must have unlimited lives or something because I just kept dying over and over, and I didn't get a game over. And then eventually I got some game overs, and I was like, oh, you start with like 12 lives or something. So
yeah, they give you 30 lives per level. So you get your 30 lives to get through that level, and then when you die, like when you get to the next level, it gives you another 30. So it's not like a continuous thing like the old Contra.
Yeah. How far did you get, Russ?
I got to 4th or 5th level. So it's pretty addicting. I mean, it's probably 8 to 10 minutes per level. Not a long game, Yeah. And the mechanics are not quite like Contra. Contra had like, in the original Contra, you had like the, side-scrolling levels, but then also there was the levels where you're kind of going through a tunnel, right? So you don't have the tunnel part in Contra. You have vertical levels. And so there'll be some where you're just going this way and others where you're more jumping, And yeah, it's been really interesting for me. And I like... the amount of blood and stuff is kind of funny, just seeing all the pixelated gore and stuff reminds me of like Super Smash TV, which where it's just like people like get creamed, and you kind of do that to everyone. I'm playing it on easy, which is great because they have those options, and you get achievements even if you're on easy. Like there's no like, as far as I can tell looking at the achievements, it's not like get this level on hard difficulty as an achievement. It's not that. It's just finish the level, do it your way. I was just recently playing Flintlock on Xbox like Game Pass. That one will not give you any achievements if you play it on easy mode. Like they just have it locked behind you got to play it on normal if you just want to get an achievement for beating that level, and that was super annoying. So I like that they did that.
Yeah, I've been playing it too. There's a demo out there, so if people haven't tried it yet, they should try the demo because the demo is just the first level, and the first level really kind of accentuates that like Contra familiarity, right? Because it's very much like the first level of the first Contra, and just in the Iron Meat universe. So you get to feel familiar right off the bat. And I do like the 2 weapon system. I tried to like hold on to the one weapon I really like, which I don't remember. I think it's like you or something, but it's like this like these waves that go. Yeah, that one.
The one that
so
shoots really really fast, or
yes.
I love
the
that
one that shoots fast and like has these like crescent arcs. Back to back to back. I love that one. But yeah, so I'm also trying to find like what is my second favorite, so I can have that as well. But I'm really digging that one.
It's funny that I was just going to mention that the spread gun is kind of the worst, which is funny. It's like the opposite of a Contra. Like you're just trying to get the spread one. This one is like, oh, spread it, because I only just like 3 bullets, and it's like really narrow and limited. And the other thing to mention about the weapons is that you don't have to mash the buttons. You can just hold on to the fire button and it'll keep going, which is great. Yeah. More modern aesthetic, and I really enjoy that. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say I got to the second level, which is the first like vertical level that they have. So that was fun to see too. Yeah, I did think of like those tunnel rooms from NES Contra, but then also in Contra 3 Super Nintendo they have like the mode 7 top down stuff. But I didn't like those levels, so I'm glad that this doesn't have those. Yeah. So
I'm either on level 4 or 5. I can't remember which one. I was going to check, and I have Pegland is currently like sleeping on my system, so I don't want to close out or anything right now to check. It's funny that you mention holding down the button, because I'm playing on SteamOS and SteamOS or Bazite, and that means that I have Steam input, and so I can do whatever I want. And so I turned the X button into a toggle where I just turn it on and it just keeps shooting, and I don't have to hold down the button anymore.
Oh, wow.
So then I could just keep my thumb on the A button and just jump when I need to jump. It's funny because, Russ, you and I were talking about it, and you said this is a game that reminds me that you said, how did you phrase it about the D-pad of the Steam Deck?
Oh, that it reminded me that the Steam Deck D-pad does not pass the Contra test.
Yeah, it does not.
The diagonals are a little bit too loose and that a little bit too accidental. And so I was finding that I wasn't in, because I just tried it on the Steam Deck first and I was like, no, all good. And so I went and I played it on that ROG Nook in the living room with an 8-bit DO controller instead, just so I had a little bit better diagonals.
Rich, are you using the D-pad or the stick in order to play? Because I've been using the stick.
Yeah, I've just been using the stick. I haven't even gone to the D-pad, but I've been using the LIX. So I would use the D-pad, but it's just I've become accustomed to playing platformers on stick as well. So that's all right with me.
I also set my left trigger to, because you can hold right trigger and then your character will stay in place, so you can aim without moving, which is great. I set the left trigger to only be down on the stick, so that if I need to duck down without moving left or right, I can just let go of the stick completely and just pull that trigger, and my character lays flat. And
you created your own Contra test.
Exactly. Well, I solved.
Right. You know what's funny is I did not know you could switch weapons or any of that stuff. I was just playing it old school. Like, I get a weapon, I'm like, oh, do I want to trade for that weapon or not? Like, I'm just playing it old Nintendo style. And so now that I know that there's another layer to it, I'm more interested to try those levels again.
Did you not play or remember Contra 3? That's I think Contra 3 has switched.
Contra 3 has that too?
Doesn't it?
The Super Nintendo one? I've never swapped a weapon in any Contra game. Like, maybe that's probably just a failing on my part, but I just play it like the NES one every time.
Contra 3 has switchable weapons.
My goodness, what button? Like a shoulder button?
I don't remember.
All these years.
Yeah,
my gosh,
I don't
now I'm
remember.
mad.
But I see the icons. I see the icons in a picture of the game. Like, there's like one H and one L right next to each other.
H is so good too. I just always try to get H.
Yeah.
Wait, are you talking about Contra still, or now are
Contra
we back
3.
to?
Yeah, we're talking about Contra 3.
Okay.
Super Nintendo Contra. You can switch weapons.
Okay,
Russ had no idea.
Contra 3 is Super C?
No, that's on NES.
That gets confusing. No, it's not.
It's not? Okay, that's what I thought.
It's the first Super Nintendo Contra. This Contra.
It's the 3. Alien Wars one, which was also made on Game Boy Advance and Game Boy. Yeah.
And Genesis.
Genesis was Contra Hardcore.
Yeah.
Spelled like Retro Game Core. Yeah.
Yes.
I cannot keep track of all the Contra games, but that's okay. I don't need to, because I can just play Iron Meat, which I don't like saying. It's an awful name.
To be honest,
Meat.
The game was there. The demo was there when we were at Too Many Games, and I just walked by every time.
I was wondering.
Rip-off. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even think about it. But as soon as Bill sent over the code, I was like, I'll just try it. And half hour later, I'm like, I really like this. And so
it's well made.
I wish I had played it back then. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the games that. Wait, did we get everybody's games? Yes, we did.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the games that we've been playing this week. Let us know what games you guys have been playing in the comment section down below, and laugh at Russ for not knowing that you could swap weapons in Contra 3, and laugh at me for thinking that Super C was Contra 3 and that the Genesis game. Oh my God, Contra. All right, this week in Contra. Moving on to the news, we've got a bunch of stories, starting off with not necessarily a video game story, but a TV show story. There's this new anthology from the people who, and now I have forgotten who made the robot something. It's from the same
Love, Death, and Robots from the creative mind.
From the people that made Love, Death, and Robots, and it's an anthology series where each episode is going to be showing you something from the world of a video game. We've got a bunch of different games, including Armored Core, Concord, Crossfire, D&D, Exodus, Honor of Kings, Mega Man, New World, Aeternum, Pac-Man, PlayStation, I guess, Sifu, Spelunky, The Outer Worlds, Unreal Tournament, and Warhammer 40K. All right, so of that list, Russ, what is exciting to you on that list? What are you interested in watching a little TV show about?
I'm going to pick two. I would say Mega Man and Pac-Man, because like Mega Man, I guess it's got its own lore and stories and stuff. I've never followed any of that stuff. I never played like Mega Man Zero on Game Boy Advance, which feels like a story game almost, you know. So I would love to just see that world and like what they would make out of that. And then Pac-Man too. Like obviously, it's kind of one-dimensional when you think about the original one. So what are they going to inject into it to give it stakes? And that's what I want to see. You know, let's give Pac-Man like a reason to get all those pills.
For sure.
That's what I want to see.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Something funny. They wouldn't do this, but this would be hilarious. Have you guys ever seen Street Fighter Cross Tekken?
No.
So Street Fighter Cross Tekken is a 2D tag fighting game that is Street Fighter and Tekken, right? Mm-hmm. And they have some Capcom characters that are not Street Fighter characters, and one of them is Mega Man. But it's a like joke version of Mega Man, so it's like the American box art Mega Man.
Oh, with the gun?
Yes, with the gun and the yellow and blue suit, and he's a fighting character in this game. So I was like, it'd be funny if they did that. If they did American cover art Mega Man instead of just like Rockman.
Right.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. The other thing that I would love to see, since you mentioned Pac-Man, I'm the oldest person on this podcast, and so I remember growing up watching Saturday morning cartoons, and they had the Saturday morning cartoon version of Pac-Man. There was like the video game, just like they had a bunch of stuff. There was like a Donkey Kong cartoon and a Pac-Man cartoon and all this different stuff that was on Saturday mornings. And the Pac-Man show, there was a bad guy, like there was actually like an antagonist for the show called Mesmeron, and he was like this bald guy with like the bottom of his face was covered with a metal thing, and he wore this big red cloak, and the ghosts worked for him. And so he would always send the ghosts to go bother Pac-Man for some reason. Pac-Man would get into trouble. He would eat a power pellet. He would turn around and chomp the ghosts, and then their eyeballs would float back to Mesmeron's lair. And they would go into the closet and grab another like shirt essentially and put it on, and then they would be ghosts again. I would love to see Mesmeron and the ghosts come back for that, because that's ridiculous.
That's awesome.
That'd be funny. That's great.
Rich, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, what do you think the one I'm looking forward to the most is?
Oh, that's tough. Okay.
I would say Outer Worlds.
Spelunky.
All right, Bill, you got it.
Really?
So Spelunky is the one. I don't know what they're going to do with that, but I just love Spelunky. I love that universe. I love that game. So I'm really curious to see like how they translate that into sort of like an animation thing. The Outer Worlds I haven't tried. So you may be thinking of the Outer Wilds, which I adore.
Yeah, I thought you liked both. That's my bad.
Yeah, I haven't tried the Outer Worlds,
like
but it
Outer
looks
Worlds.
good. Yeah. But also Sifu and PlayStation, I'm curious about. Sifu feels like it's just like made for this sort of thing, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, we'll definitely see something good come out of that. And then PlayStation for me, I'm just picturing Astrobot, right? Like just a melange of just all sorts of IP from PlayStation.
Mm-hmm. So the one that I don't know which one I'm most interested in, but the one that I think could be really cool is Unreal Tournament.
Yeah.
Like I have so many hours into Unreal Tournament, and then eventually Unreal Tournament, was it 2004 was the one that I really put a bunch of hours into. But before that, I don't remember what it's called, but there's like a map where you're up in space and you've got these two giant towers facing each other, and basically is capture the flag, and you just had to keep running back and forth across this big open expanse. And then up at the top they had a sniper gun, and so people would always go up to the top, and then would snipe people as they're running back and forth with the flag and stuff. Like, did you guys remember that that level?
I don't remember that level.
Not specifically, yeah.
Oh, I had
That sounds
so
awesome.
much fun playing that particular level, especially when you would play in a server that had instagib and no gravity or low gravity. So
Yeah.
like you could jump and you would be all super floaty, but huge disadvantage to being super floaty is you can't zig and zag real well. So snipers would be able to take you out real fast. But I would love to see Unreal Tournament being set in that particular setting so that we could see it again.
And it feels like it's a blank canvas, right? In terms of like personality. I don't know. I don't remember Unreal Tournament having lots of like personality. Well, it did, right? Like the announcer, like
Overkill.
yeah, exactly. There was that personality, but I don't know. There wasn't much substance, I guess is the word. So I want to see that. I want to see what they come up with in that universe. So that should be interesting. Irony being that Epic just unlisted, a year ago or whatever, unlisted Unreal Tournament. So it's not like you can buy an Unreal Tournament game anywhere, but whatevs.
Yeah, it's funny because like Dungeons and Dragons and Warhammer would be like, there's just so much to those that they're going to have to really contain that to a very small story within that huge universe.
Yes.
And that's not exciting to me compared to taking something that's small and making it big,
Agreed. Yeah. I don't even know how you begin with Warhammer and Dungeons and Dragons. That's going to be weird.
If I were in charge of and by the way, the name of the show is called Secret Levels, and it's a Amazon show, so it'll be on Amazon Prime. At least that's my understanding of it. But I feel like if I were in charge of this, I would look at when we were all done, and I would say, okay, which episode did the best? Let's do a 3-part episode on that universe next season.
That'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
And which one did the worst? Maybe we don't watch that one, or maybe we don't continue that series. Yeah. It's a new way to pilot shows, I think.
Yeah,
I like it.
All right. So when we were talking about before we started the show, before we hit that record button, one of the things that Russ said, okay, I want to talk about Metal Gear Solid. Russ, why are you hyped for Metal Gear Solid? Tell me.
Oh, I actually didn't know any of this news. I just saw that it was listed here. So I don't know any of the goings on with Metal Gear Solid, but I just always want to play Metal Gear Solid. And then I saw down here, there's some talk about Metal Gear Solid 4, which is one of those where I played through that game as soon as it launched. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I even bought a PS3 in the first place. Played through it, but at this point, I don't really remember what happened because I feel like when I even had it unfold, I didn't understand what happened because that's kind of how Metal Gear Solid works, And so not only did I not understand it at the time, I also just don't remember not understanding it either. And so I'm ready to play that game again. Metal Gear Solid 3, same thing, like that new Delta version. Really looking forward to that because I didn't jive well with PS2 version at the time. I thought, graphically it was just kind of hard to see what was happening. And then also I was just me as a very personal gamer, like I was a little miffed that it wasn't continuing my Metal Gear Solid 2 storyline that I wanted to learn more about. And so it was a prequel. And so that was always one of those things where I didn't give it enough credit at the time. And so I'm ready for that one too.
So real quick, the quote from the article, it says that they've had a chance to actually play Metal Gear Solid Delta, and that's 3. They're starting the series over. And Russ said, it's a prequel, which means this is where his story actually starts because, we hadn't seen that. So this is now going to be the first Metal Gear in this reboot of the series. And basically there's a demo that the person who wrote the article got to play for like an hour and a half. And they said, but no, really, listen to me. Delta isn't Metal Gear Solid 3 the way that Silent Hill 2 Remake is Silent Hill 2, or the way that Final Fantasy VII Remake is Final Fantasy VII. Having spent an hour and a half with it, I can say that it is shot for shot, not a hair out of place recreation of the original PS2 masterpiece that I regard as one of the best video games ever made. Konami seems to have taken 0 liberties with the classic. And then further on in the article, he talks about there's a few quality of life features that they put in, but it's basically it's the same game, just with prettier graphics. I've never played Metal Gear Solid 3, so I'm very excited to play this because everybody is always like, Metal Gear, we love Kojima. And I'm just like, I played Metal Gear on my Nintendo. I never played Metal Gear, the other Metal Gear games, because I didn't have those systems, so I didn't get to play them. So I'm hyped for it. Rich, Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta, you hyped for it?
Very much so. Yeah. So I'm hesitant to figure out how much I want to say about something you just said. I don't want to spoil anything, so I won't.
That I said or that Russ said?
That you said, Bill.
Oh, okay.
So I'll just say it is a prequel, but some of your expectations are not what happens. So
okay.
I'll just say go in with an open mind, right? So I'll just say that. I never finished Metal Gear Solid 3. It is really hard to see things in Metal Gear Solid 3.
In the jungle scenes especially, yeah.
Yeah. So that is something that even if the game is shot for shot the same, that just having a higher fidelity of graphics should be helpful, right? To be able to see better. I did like the mechanics. I liked like the camo and trying to match the camo to what you were in, and that had like a score associated with it and things like that. So I like the gameplay. I like the bosses a lot. I think I got to one where I don't remember the boss's name, but you're sort of in these trenches, and it gets kind of psycho as Metal Gear Solid games tend to do. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to actually finish it this time. And the other thing I wanted to say was that like one of the reasons I'm really just interested in finally finishing the Metal Gear Solid series is that like, you know, I've done this thing where like I've put media for this game to the side where I don't want to read the think pieces. I don't want to do anything until I actually play the game myself. So I'm really just interested in finishing the series and then just diving deep into the media of just like, this is what this means. This is who this character was. And yeah, I think that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I feel like this would be a good starting point if you wanted to play this game and then go back to the old ones, because they are in an order, and I'm probably not going to get the order correct, but you would have to do this, and then I think you would go into 5 maybe, and then you would get to the NES or MSX versions, and then you would jump over to, gosh, I don't even know at that point, maybe the first Metal Gear Solid. Like there's
that sounds right. All of that sounds
There's so
correct.
many different like layers to get the timeline in chronological order if you wanted to go that way. But the nice thing is that each of these, regardless, like if you even play them in just like release order, you can get a really neat experience that way as well. You know, because it does throw back to some of the other characters and stuff, like younger versions of them or whatever. And so, yeah, there's just no wrong way to really play this game. I would argue maybe there's no one right way to play it either, because there's just so many different variations to it. But yeah, I'm ready at this point to really play through this game. I think the last I played was 5 around the pandemic. I sat down, I put 40 hours into it and kind of played everything, and that left me feeling so like unfinished, you know, because I don't know if you guys know the story or whatever, but you know, Kojima didn't really get to finish the game that he envisioned with that one, and you can feel that as you're finishing that game. And so jumping back at the start, I think would be a lot of fun.
So the next thing that I want to talk about with Metal Gear is that, you know, Metal Gear Solid 4 is supposed to be in the volume 2 of the Metal Gear Solid collection. I have to say, I love when companies put out these collections so the people who missed out on stuff the first time around can pick these up and have lots and lots of gameplay. But I have a question, because I could be wrong, because, again, I have not played the Metal Gear series. But is my understanding that Metal Gear Solid 4 on the PS3 used like different, like pressure-sensitive buttons in order to do different things in the game? And how does that work if your controller doesn't have that ability?
Yeah.
Is that the reason why it's been locked to the PS3 for so long?
No, I don't think it's a mechanics thing. I don't remember the pressure sensitive thing. Again, like it's such a fuzzy memory of this. Like, it's one of those where, you know, if you binge something, you're less likely to remember it because you just did it too quickly. Like I did that with this game. And so I watched all 20 hours of the cutscenes all at once. And so I don't really remember much. Yeah, I don't remember the pressure sensitive thing. I mean, I've done emulation with it.
PS2 had pressure sensitive face buttons. I don't think PS3 had pressure sensitive face buttons.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah, it was Metal Gear Solid 2 that did it, because I just Googled it.
Yeah,
Metal Gear Solid 2 had the pressure-sensitive buttons, so I was just mixing things up.
And
the thing about 4, good.
I was just say they did address that in like ports, right? I don't know how, I don't remember how, but like it's not that serious. Like they just did something for those pressure-sensitive buttons in ports for 2.
4 was just rough because it took advantage of a lot of the PS3, technology, that CPU, and so it's been hard to port over. Even emulation-wise, you got to have a beefy PC even just to brute force into that game, and even then you've got to use patches and stuff, and so that one's rough. But it is like, I don't have a lot of urgency to play this one in particular, even though I just said how much I can't wait to play it, because it is the end of the storyline. Like, so there are other things I need to get to first, and so story-wise, I'm not in a huge rush to play this game because I feel like if I am going to jump into it, I'm going to just do it all, and this will probably be the last one I want to play.
And Metal Gear Solid, you saying 4 is the end of the storyline?
Chronologically. Or not like in
Right.
timeline-wise, this is like the final chapters of Solid Snake's story,
So I feel like I get to have the best experience because I'm going to play Metal Gear Solid Delta, which is, the beginning. And then I assume what they're going to do is continue to release the remake these games in chronological order so you can experience Snake's story all the way through. And that's how I'm going to play it. I'm probably not going to play the remakes. I'll just play the new version. So Metal Gear Solid Delta, I'll play that one, and then when Delta 2 comes out, and it's whatever is the next one chronologically, which seems more complicated than I thought, that's going to be the next one that I end up playing.
Yeah, I saw a funny video recently. We were just talking about the Zelda timeline in our group chat with Kyle from Kyle Cryobyte33, and I just saw a great YouTube short. It was all about how confusing the Zelda timeline is, and so it's it's one of those shorts where it's one guy's talking to another guy, but it's the same guy, right? It's just a dude, and he's talking to himself, and so he's like, yeah, and then Zelda this, and then Link that, and blah blah, and then the dude's like, oh man, that's insane. That's crazy. And he's like, that's nothing. Wait till I tell you about Metal Gear. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing about
awesome.
Zelda is it's mostly people just trying to put together pieces that aren't necessarily required to understand to be able to play the game. I don't need to know what part of the timeline Twilight Princess is in, right? But you kind of got to know this stuff when it comes to the Metal Gear. And it's so funny because to really get a deep understanding, you have to understand the MSX versions, which were not popular, not localized. The second one wasn't localized here at all. And so those are full on, they've been re-released with I think if you bought the PS2 remasters of Xbox 360 version of the Metal Gear Solid 2. I think that came with one of the MSX versions. Anyway, that's one of the things is that you have to get into Hideo Kojima's mind, which started in the 80s, so there's a lot to go on there. And so I'm hoping that Metal Gear Solid Delta 2, if there is one, bridges that gap. What happened in between, what is that? At that point, it would be between 5 and Solid Snake, or in Metal Gear Solid. Yeah. So there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
I need a visual aid.
This is what I'm talking about. This is why I can't wait to finally just play all the games and then just go look at everybody's timelines and charts and be like, oh,
yeah,
that's what happened. Okay, I get it now. No.
It's every time there's a Marvel movie out, my wife and I, we go and watch the movie and we come home and we put on Screen Crush. And he says, by the way, when they said this, that was a reference to this issue, number 47 of this comic book, and this is the shirt that they were wearing, and you could see it in this picture in the background. I'm like, how do you find all this stuff?
Last thing before we move on, before I forget, I want to recommend a video from a YouTuber called Daryl Talks Games. Russ, you were talking about binging something and remembering it very well. So it's all this video. He does videos that are video essays that mix games and just broad game concepts with psychological papers and studies and things like that. So this latest video is all about trying to forget a video game that you love so that you can come back to it later with that sort of fresh experience. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Very cool. My son came up, I think it might have been today or maybe it was yesterday, because he had just played a game and he said to me, he goes, do you ever wish that you could go back to when you didn't know and do it again? I'm like, yeah, all the time. That's Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. Go back to the first time that you played these games without your Half-Life, without having all that stuff in your head,
BioShock.
and be able to experience it again.
Yeah, BioShock. That was a good one.
BioShock, the best. I've said it, and I will never spoil this, but that moment when the door opens and you see something written on the wall, and you have that realization, you're like, oh, wow, that's one of my all-time favorite video game moments that I've ever experienced, was that thing written on the wall, because it blew my mind.
Yeah. Another interesting one for me is Mass Effect 3, because, they changed that ending because people are so mad about it or whatever. So same thing, about that, the day it came out, played through it over, the course of a week or whatever. An ending is an ending, and whatever the storyteller wants to tell, I'm in for it. I'm not going to get mad about the story they want to tell. But it was so cool to have a second ending to say, okay, well, here's an alternate version, and it came out around the time that I basically, because I had binged it previously, kind of forgot what happened in that first Metal Gear or Mass Effect 3 ending. And so I was able to experience it twice. And so that was really great. And now I've forgotten both of them. So anytime I jump into any of that, Mass Effect universe again, that'll be a really great experience for me too. I just don't want to play through the first one again, because it's just such a chore compared to the others. Yeah. And so that's what's been stopping me from getting through the Legendary Edition, which I have on PS5 or 4 and 5, as well as on Steam. But
I have it on Xbox, and I told myself I was going to play through, but the first one just doesn't hold up. I remember playing the first one when it first came out and being like, this is all amazing except for the Mako. Yeah, this is amazing. But then when I played 2, I was like, oh, yeah, the first one's not nearly as good as I felt it was at the time. Yeah. And when I got the Legendary Edition that has the trilogy, I sat down, loaded up the first one. I didn't make it very far before I was like, I don't want to play this. It's just not as good.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, let's move on to a story that, Rich, you added this to the show notes. Space Marine 2 is going to have Steam Deck support. Let's talk about that, man.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about this game. I didn't play the first one, but it just looks like a ton of fun. And Jimmy apparently, well, let me actually not say anything else, because I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but I will say. Never mind. Steam Deck HQ actually posted an update to the thing I linked in the show notes, which is it plays well on the Steam Deck. Space Marine 2 does play well on the Steam Deck. So I am very excited about this. Whether I'm playing on Ally X or whatever, I think that it just looks really fun. What I did hear was that it combines God of War and Gears of War. So just this sort of melee shoot, just gore. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of fun. So, and there's co-op as well. So I'm looking forward to trying that too.
So Warhammer, I know that there's different versions of Warhammer. The only Warhammer game that I've played, it was like a top-down isometric Diablo style game. And I don't think it took place in the Diablo in the 40K. Maybe. It didn't take place in the 40K universe. It was some other thing. So this is 40K, which is you're in space, which is different than the Warhammer that has goblins and shit, right?
I have no idea.
I don't know any of this stuff.
Okay. Warhammer is confusing.
Yeah, it's always intimidating to jump into, and so I'm totally feeling your pain there. I was like, and then this is a sequel game, because it's well, do I need to know Space Marine 1 or to enjoy this? But then when you say God of War and Gears of War, I'm like, oh, interest peaked. And so I don't know, this is something that I just look at some of the screenshots. I was like, I could play that. You know what I mean? I could definitely. I don't need to know why I'm shooting these guys. If it feels good to shoot them, it's like Helldivers 2. I didn't play Helldivers 1, but man, that was fun. So yeah, I'm interested in this too.
Yeah. And these guys, Saber, they made World War Z, and I forget the other game they made.
That was a solid game.
Yeah, so I haven't played that either, but I've seen gameplay of it. And I'm like, oh, this just looks just plain fun, right? So I'm excited to actually try one of these. So this will be the one. The one I was thinking of when you said Diablo, it turns out it wasn't a Diablo game. It was Dawn of War 2, which was an RTS game. But that was fun. Okay. I don't know if you've played that before. Warhammer 40K Dawn of War 2. Yeah.
Let's talk about Control and Annapurna Interactive. They are partnering with Remedy Entertainment. or Annapurna Pictures are partnering with Remedy Entertainment in order to help Remedy focus on making Control 2 by giving them a bunch of money. So basically they're going to pay for 50% of it. And what they're going to do then is get the rights to make a movie or a TV show or something like that for in this Control universe. Russ, have you played Control?
I have. This is one of those where we were just talking about Wukong, and like the fact that you don't get punished for dying. This is what stops me from really enjoying Control, because I love the atmospheres, the feel of it, just like the very like almost Scandinavian kind of like solidarity feeling that you're playing when you're playing Control. I love all of that stuff, but man, every time you die you like lose some of your XP or whatever, and it's not a recoverable thing. It's one of those where you lose like, and I can't remember, I mentioned it on the show before, but I think it's like you lose like 10% of the XP you had, but the XP is what you need to like level up, like whatever it happens to be. It's been so long for me at this point, and so that was like one of those where it is a big turnoff for me, and so I've never been able to finish it. But I love it. It's like I love and hate some of those elements, and so it's always been really compelling for me.
You like the gameplay, you don't like the mechanics.
Yeah, it's just that one tiny part of it. It's just that like my own like gameplay like skill and ability. And again, this was years ago, and I've gotten a lot better at games now that I've been running a game channel. I test all the time, so I should probably really try to push and try to play it, but yeah, it was really just one of those where it's like a barrier for me as a personal player, but I think there's so many cool elements to it. The mystery of it. This game is also really well known for having like the best like clues found within like just things that you pick up, like those notes that you read that you find on a computer or whatever terminal, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Control is known as being like one of the best to immerse you into that kind of world that way, and so I've always been very interested in this game.
See, I've played it, not a lot, just enough to dip my toes in. And the question I have is, how important is it that you read those clues? Because I know personally, when I play games, I don't read anything. Most of the time I skip dialogue scenes because I'm just like, I just want to play a game. Shut up, don't talk to me. And it's not really fair to the games that I'm playing, but that's just the way I tend to play sometimes. So I miss out on that stuff a lot. Yeah. Is that going to be a huge barrier to entry if I decide to jump in and play Control again?
I mean, I think it's whatever experience you want to have. I think there is enough just in the main story. Like the fact that they just drop you off in this building. They don't tell you any of how you got there, but then you will have your own flashbacks of like, okay, like my childhood. Like there's so many layers just in that first like 2 hours where you're like, holy crap, this is getting really weird. Like I still don't even know why I'm here and what I'm doing here, how I got here. But also there's all these other layers that I know that are deeply personal about this person, and like it was their brother or whatever that they're searching for, like there's just so many like interesting things to it. I loved it. I loved all that kind of really deep, like they spent time coming up with a great story and then they hid it all from you. And so you got to figure it out. And I love that.
What about you, Rich?
I've played a bit of Control as well, and I enjoy it. Definitely one that I have to actually finish, just like the other games that we've talked about on this. But I'm really interested in this because, first of all, like Remedy seems to always find these like interesting partnerships that work, I think, really well for them. So the most recent one was Epic Games, where Epic Games was publishing Alan Wake 2, and they funded Alan Wake 2, as far as I understand. So this kind of gives them the opportunity to break away from Epic Games and work with Annapurna, who already have like just a strong background, of course, in like creating film and TV series. So like this seems like a perfect marriage, especially with like the ambitions that Remedy has had in the past. They had was it Quantum Break? Was that the game? Quantum Break, which was like part game, part TV show, something like that.
Oh, I didn't know that. I played Quantum Break. I didn't know there was a TV show associated with it. I started Quantum Break. Let me make sure that I'm clear. I started it.
Yeah. So I don't know much about it, but I remember that they both were a thing, and like the storylines were sort of like interwoven in some way. But so yeah, that was a thing. So like this, just having an opportunity to have like a really big, I don't even want to say studio, but just like company that works on this like full time, or they're going to make just TV and movie in this universe that is already like rich for that. And
Right.
so, and it's for both Control and Alan Wake. And side benefit, that hopefully means that Control 2 will be on Steam as opposed to Alan Wake 2, which is exclusive to EGS. Yeah.
As far as Alan Wake, I want two things. I want to have an Alan Wake series. I would love to watch that every week, especially because that game was already super episodic, because you would sit down, you would load in the chapter, and it would be like previously on Alan Wake, and you would get to see like a little recap. And then when you got to the end of the chapter, it would say next time on it. Like, it felt like you were watching a TV show, at least the first one. I haven't played the second one. I want to see an Alan Wake TV series, but I also want to see, I don't know what it's called, but it's there's the TV show that's in Alan Wake that, like, as you're walking through the woods, if you turn on TVs in the thing, they have like it's their own Twilight Zone show. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I never got far in Alan Wake. Too scary.
Okay, so as you're going through, you'll find a TV, and if you turn it on, it's like a TV show that is it's basically aping Twilight Zone. And you're watching it, and you're sitting there, and you get to watch like these little 2 or 3 minute segments of that show on the TV, and it's just very, very confusing what's happening there. And I would love to see them be able to pick that up as well and do that as a series.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
All right. So I think that we've already been going for an hour 20. So let's jump to, is there any topics that you guys absolutely want to hit before we go to the comments from last episode?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So we had a bunch of comments came in from the last episode. I went through and I found a couple that I thought were interesting. At AB223 says, I've only recently just rejoined the cult of PC gaming. My last decent rig was in the mid-2000s when consoles were given total priority and PC was an afterthought. The change in attitudes has been great to see. Good times ahead. Do you guys think that, I mean, obviously we're seeing a lot of ports to PC that we weren't seeing before, but most of the big games, I feel like that they prioritize consoles still, or is that something that's just in my head?
I would say that it feels more like we're all on the same team now, where it used to not necessarily be like that in the mid 2000s. It used to be there were PC games and there were console games, and sometimes the two would meet, but not too often, Nowadays, it just feels like we're almost at a level playing field in terms of just like the quality that you're going to get in any of these platforms. But, are we all going to be able to share in that experience together? And so that's the kind of thing I see as not whether or not it's a priority to each of these developers and the production teams and stuff like that, but rather just that we're at an even like playing field at this point. And so we're all kind of in it together, which is just a really cool area to be in. There's, as much as we have the console wars right now and all that stuff, PC versus console and stuff, it is nothing compared to Sega versus Nintendo in 1992. And so, so I like that. I like the fact that we're getting closer, and I think it's a great time to jump into any of the platforms. But probably, if I had to put my money on any of them, it would be PC right now, because that seems to get the lion's share of just kind of everything. So,
yeah, I'd agree. I think I did watch like the Wukong Digital Foundry videos. So there was the PS5 video, and then there was the PC video, or vice versa. But either way, they did one video on each. And the notion was that they were both not great in terms of optimization specifically, right? Like, these are good. Wukong is a good game. It looks great, but there was traversal stutter. There were other problems. So like, neither of them were like greatly optimized. So that does feel like a common thing at this point, right? Like, you can expect that day one is not necessarily going to be a great experience, but it'll get better over time. There was a Wukong patch for PC. I don't know if it's come out for PlayStation yet, but that's sort of one of the benefits of PC, right? Is you don't have to go through the certification process or something like that. So it's just, there are definite pros and cons, but I do feel like Russ, that, we're just all sort of one big happy family. Not to be overly positive here, but yeah, like it feels like we're all in similar boats at this point.
You made me think about the day one thing. just real quick, that day one thing, is I saw some sort of, it wasn't even a meme, it was a clapback, but basically Ubisoft was like, hey, something talking about like, what was the last game that you finished, and like, the joy of finishing a game.
I saw this.
Like quote tweeted, and we're like, when was the last time you guys finished a game? It's just so true. I mean, it is one of those things. Even Wukong, I was like, I'll play it in 3 months once they've figured it out, So anyway, sorry, Bill.
Understandably so. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you bring up Ubisoft, however it is that you're supposed to say it, and they just shipped Star Wars Outlaws, and they had that ridiculous thing where you paid extra money in order to play the game early. And then apparently, if you were on PS5, they had a day one patch on the day one, like what they call day one, which is the day when everybody gets to play it, not just the people who paid extra. And that day one patch on PlayStation apparently broke the saves of the people who were playing it or in early access. And so, like, that's the kind of thing that drives me up the absolute wall that thing happened. And it's just hilarious that that was the quote tweet that when are you guys going to finish a game? That's so good.
It's like, you see those legendary editions, $120 early access or whatever, right? And they list off all the things you get, a new sword or whatever. They just put in there additional bugs, because that's like, you're going to also be paying to get like more jank than everybody else. So it's just another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
That's awesome. The janky version. We got a comment from Edisto9. They said, I somewhat understand Bill's, I'm going to put this in quotes even though they didn't rule, about not bringing handhelds on trips/vacation because you're meant to enjoy the trip. But what about the downtime, the plane ride, the taxi rides, and the times that you're just relaxing in a chair? That's when you're supposed to break out the Steam Deck, not in the middle of an amusement ride or tour. And I have to clarify, I don't have a rule about that. Most of the time when I'm going on vacation, I don't want to carry extra stuff. Like, nothing again. I love my wife. She brings a lot of stuff. Like, she packs a lot of stuff whenever we go places. And if I can minimize how much stuff that I have with me, that's probably what I'm going to do. That being said, if I know that I'm going to have downtime, I would like to bring a retro device. I'm not going to travel with a whole ass Steam Deck or ROG Ally or anything like that, just because they're so big and they take up so much room. But something like RG35XXSP or the Miu Mini Plus or the new 4-inch Ambernick, this doesn't take up very much room and it's relatively light, so I can easily see throwing that in my suitcase. But almost every time that I do, I don't ever use it because I'm too busy. We were talking because, Rich, you just did some traveling. Russ, you're about to do some traveling. Rich, what did you bring with you when you went on your little vacation? And are you going to do a video like Russ usually does about like, this is what I brought with me?
No, I didn't record anything or anything like that. But I brought the RG Ally X for me, the Steam Deck for my son. I brought a laptop in case I wanted to write. And then and then the iPad for my daughter. So like we all had screens. For the, like that commenter said, for the plane ride. And then like we spend a decent amount of time just in a hotel room, right? So like sometimes we'll order in or get takeout and bring it back to the hotel room, and we're just sitting there watching TV or something like that. So the kids get restless. I'm like, yeah, please just go watch some iPad or something. So yeah, during that time I'll play some video games as well, for sure.
Russ, what are you bringing with you when you head off to Germany?
I'm going a little bit nuts on this because, you got to remember the German trip is like, I'm going to a thing that's dedicated for like 4 days straight of just playing video games. And so I'm bringing a bunch of stuff so that we as a group can play together. So I'm bringing like my Switch, for example. And I got the MiG Switch like dumper and cartridge like that I had bought myself. I got that in the mail last week. I'm going to have a video coming out about that while I'm gone. And, one of the things I did is I used that dumper and I just dumped like probably 30 games, and then just drag them right onto the cartridge. So then I can just have all 30 on one cart without having to take my whole game collection, but mostly like multiplayer games, so that when we get there, we all can play like co-op on a projector. So we're going to play like Mario Kart and, Crash Team Racing, stuff like that. So I brought that. My not Steam Deck, ROG Ally X. I'm bringing that mostly because there are a couple PC games I'm thinking about maybe playing on the plane, but then also I think there will be people there that'll be interested in trying one out. Haven't seen it before, so I thought that'd be fun. And then I'm bringing my RG35XX SP for like retro gaming, because I just finished a video about like shaders and overlays and stuff, and I spent weeks working on that, and I screwed up the configurations on all my devices by doing all this testing and stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do my own like guidelines on the plane, like just doing some configuration for an hour, just kind of relaxing and enjoying that. But yeah, it's, one of the things about, like, I get this a lot, especially because I do travel videos and I talk about, hey, we went on travel, these are the things we brought, these are the games we played and stuff like that. And I get a lot of comments of like, oh, you're on vacation, you shouldn't be playing games, you should be spending time with your family. And one of the examples was that, like, my son, we like when we went to Japan over the spring break, we went on a tour. Like, we were part of like my whole wife's family, like 11 of us went together. We were like part of this tour that was like 30 people. And we were on a bus a lot, like, because we were going all around Japan, not just in Tokyo itself. And multiple times we had like 4-hour bus trips, like to get from one place to the other because of traffic and everything else. And that was when my son would play video games. And people were like, oh, he should be enjoying Japan. I'm like, dude, you can only look out a window for so long before it just gets mind-numbing. Like, it's the same concrete jungle as if you're just, driving through Michigan or whatever, like Detroit or something. Like, it gets to a point where you no longer are interested. You're not gaining any experience or kind of fun out of that, right? So let him enjoy his game at that point. Everybody, I made a thought about this too, because it was like, yes, he was playing Hollow Knight and he was like unlocking things that he hadn't had time to sit down and do before. Everybody else on the bus was asleep. So who was wasting their time? You know what I mean? Like, everyone else is like napping and like doing all that stuff, and he's playing a game. And I think he's having a better time than the people who are sleeping through. And so I get it. Like, definitely when you're there to enjoy something, enjoy it. But there's always downtime when you're on travel. And so it's always something to think about.
Yeah.
So so first off, that video that you mentioned, I like yesterday, my wife, she sleeps in. I always get up early, and when she got up, I was sitting right over there on that couch. Russ is on my TV, and I'm sitting there and I'm holding this thing, and I'm like, okay, what did he do? What did he do next? All right, then I'm going to do there. So I watched that whole video, and awesome. I have a couple questions that I want to ask you, but not right now. Very, very good video. It's like 52 minutes long. I understand so much more about shaders and overlay and filters and all that stuff that I never really understood before. So I really appreciate that video. Go watch it if you haven't. I don't remember what my other point was, but yeah, bring stuff with you if you want. I like to pack light, and I don't want to carry a bunch of stuff. So if I'm going, I'm going to bring something like this because it's small, it's light, or actually probably something smaller than this, like maybe even a Miu Mini, not a Miu Mini Plus, but the little tiny Miu Mini guy.
Yeah.
Because I think that'd be really good. But that's going to do it for this episode of the NerdNest podcast. You guys could have been anywhere. You hung out with us for an hour and a half, and I appreciate that. Rich, what's your next video that you're working on, man?
Good question. So yeah, I'm doing something a little different this week. I didn't have any sponsorship obligations or anything like that. So I have a video in the can about the future of handhelds. It feels like we're at a new wave coming soon with like Microsoft, Sony, and obviously Nintendo all really getting deep into the handheld space, it sounds like. So kind of exploring that. And then I also, hopefully this week, I'm looking at sort of like the new information that we have for like the Valve lawsuit. So digging into that as well. So there should be a video for that hopefully later this week.
And what about you, Russ?
So I only have 2 videos coming out while I'm gone. So things are actually like, I was stressing about it for a bit, and then finally I was like, you know what? Like, this is just going to be a quiet time on the channel, and I think people will just get over it. And there's so many other things to enjoy on YouTube, But I have 2 videos coming out. The one is the MIG switch one I was talking about, so I'm going to wrap that up. And then also several months ago, I did a video about the kill switch for Steam Deck and how I kind of don't like it, even though I love it, and how I was trying to replace it. And so I tried all these other different ones, and I got a lot of feedback from people saying, oh, you forgot these two. And so I bought those two, and then I made a video testing those two out as well. And yeah, one of them, the JSO one in particular, the mod case, I think it's like, if you don't want to get a kill switch, but you want a very similar experience for half the price, that's the one to get. And so I got a whole video talking about that.
Very cool. I don't know what my next video is, but well, no, we're recording my next video right now, so it's this one. So you guys just watched it. Thank you for hanging out, and if you're still watching at this point, then you probably want to check out this video right here because, or maybe it's over there. I don't know where it is. Somewhere on the screen, there's a video that you should watch next, and we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye bye.